Hi everybody, welcome to Sunday Story Time, the online program where I read children's stories to adults. Because why not, right? Cheers. All right, for those of you that have been following along, you know that we are reading Stanley and the Magic Lamp by Jeff Brown, illustrated by Steve Bjorkman. Now, Stanley and the Magic Lamp is the sequel book to the original book that we read on Sunday Story Time called Flat Stanley. And it was called Flat Stanley because Stanley, who had been a normal little boy, got squished flat by the Great Christmas Bulletin Board of 1962. And then he started going out on all sorts of cool adventures because he was flat. But then at the end of the book, they hooked him up to a bicycle pump and blowed him back up, and now he's just a kid again, so to do another book, they had to give him a genie to make things interesting. So here we are, Stanley and the Magic Lamp. The genie's name is Haraz. It's got a much longer name than that, but Prince Haraz is a young genie who kind of ticked off the genie queen, and the genie queen, who we don't like. She's not a good queen. Not good at all. She convinced the Genie King to lock Prince Haraz in a genie bottle for 1,000 years, where he stayed until the genie bottle floated up on some beach that Arthur and Stanley happened to be walking on. Stanley picked it up and rubbed the knob, and a genie spurted out and started granting wishes all over the place. So here we are. We're in chapter 4 called The Brothers Fly. We're going to read the second half of it today because last week we read the first half. And where we left them then, they were flying across the ocean and they saw an airliner and they flew right up there and started screwing with the pilot and the co-pilot named Bert and Tom, just messing with their heads, just messing with them. And I'm a little worried about those two, Bert and Tom, actually. They seemed to be in shock when we left them. But now we pick up the story as the brothers and the genie fly across the ocean and they look down and they see a giant ocean liner ablaze with lights, and it made its way across the sea below. "Come on," Arthur shouted, whizzing away with Stanley behind him. Again, Prince Haraz laughed and let them go. The beauty of the great ship made the brothers marvel as they drew near. It was like an enormous birthday cake, each deck a layer, sparkling with the brightness of 1,000 candles. "Look, Stanley," Arthur cried. "They're having a party on the main deck." They flew closer to enjoy the fun and saw then that it was not a party, but a robbery. The main deck was crowded because robbers had lined up all the passengers and were taking their money and jewelry. The helicopter in which the robbers had arrived was parked close by, below the captain's bridge. The captain and his fellow officers had struggled, but they were chained up on the bridge. "We've got to do something, Stanley," Arthur said. Zooming down to the bridge, he shouted over the railing at the robbers below, "Stop, you crooks! Give back all that money and jewelry and stuff." Using his great strength, Arthur tore away the ropes and chains that bound the ship's officers. It was as if he were just tearing paper. Amazed, the robbers stumbled backwards, dropping money and jewelry all over the deck. "Oh, Lordy!" one robber yelled. "Who are you?" Remembering his favorite comic book hero, Arthur could not resist showing off. He flew 10 feet up in the air and stayed there, looking fierce. "I am Mighty Arthur," he shouted in a deep voice. "Mighty Arthur, enemy of crime." Exclamations rose from the robbers and passengers and ship's officers. "So strong, and a flyer, too. Who expected Mighty Arthur? Are we ever lucky? This ought to be on TV." Now Stanley swooped down from the sky with his bathrobe belt untied so that his robe flared behind him like a cape. "I'm Mighty Stanley," he called, "defender of the innocent." "I do that too," Arthur cried, wishing he had made his robe into a cape. "We both do good things, but I'm the really strong one." He saw suddenly that several robbers were trying to escape in the helicopter. It was already rising, but Arthur flashed through the air until he was directly above it and with one hand pushed it down onto the deck. There it is, see? Look at him. pushing it down the robbers and the people, and there's pushing the helicopter down onto the deck. When the frightened robbers jumped out, the ship's officers grabbed them and tied them up. Now the passengers were even more amazed. "Did you see that?" they said. "And Mighty Arthur and Mighty Stanley both on the same day. This is better than the TV." The brothers flew up to join Prince Haraz, who had been circling over the ship. "What a pair of show-offs," said the genie. "Even worse than I used to be." As they set out for home, the cheers of the grateful passengers and crew floated up behind them. "Hooray for our rescuers," they heard, "and especially Mighty Arthur." And a moment later, "Mighty Stanley, too, of course." Soon the big ship was no more than an outline of tiny lights in the black sea below, and the last cheer was only a whisper above the rushing sound of the wind. "Three cheers for the enemy of crime and the defender of the innocent." The brothers felt proud, but it had been a tiring adventure, and they were not sorry when the city came into sight. Well, there we are. That's the end of Chapter 4. We got Chapter 5 coming up next week, and that is called The Last Wish. And my last wish before we get into Chapter 5 is that somehow, someway, Stanley gets flat again. I think that's the only way to save Sunday story time right now at this juncture. So if you enjoyed Sunday story time, please, subscribe to my channel. Please subscribe to the channel and tell your friends, share it, let everybody know. Happy day.